excuse some of the profanity. People are very impassioned right now. But Bruce Sweeney in the purple jersey just said on the megaphone, he says 2 years, 9 months, that's crazy. And you get this feeling, at least for the activists and protesters, former protesters here right now, that they are not happy with that sentence. I actually was inside the courtroom. I saw Tamika Palmer, of course, Breonna Taylor's mother, essentially sort of put her face in her hands. She didn't look distraught, but she definitely looked disappointed as the judge not only said her sentence, but said the guidelines that led up to her decision. It was sort of dwindling that number as the minutes went by. Again, 2 years, 9 months. That'll be the sentence for Brett Hankison to serve in.
2 years, 9 months. 2 years and 9 months. It's not even a full 3 years. That's all he's getting. And then he gets supervised probation afterwards. Supervised by who? What, one of his buddies? That's a joke. It's a joke. Back in 2020, when we had the uprisings that were fighting against police brutality, 2 stories were burned, imprinted into our brains collectively as a nation and really throughout the world. One was the over 8.5 minutes of a police officer murdering George Floyd before our very eyes. But another story that broke a lot of our hearts, especially in the Black community, was the murder of Breonna Taylor. And I use my words very carefully because I don't say death, I say murder, because that's exactly what it is. It was a murder. Whether it was intentional or unintentional, it was still a murder. And so we have been demanding justice for Breonna Taylor for the last 5 years. I have yet to really see any justice. But unfortunately, as it goes within the system like this, we're giving crumbs. We're giving peanuts in regards to justice, in regards to fairness. And this is what's been happening to the people in this country, particularly the Black community in this country, ever since its inception. So we're going to get into this story right now. This is a story that's coming out of the Associated Press. We're going to be talking about this because there was a sentencing of one of the police officers involved in the overnight no-knock raid that resulted in the murder of Breonna Taylor. Let's get into this. It says judge gives ex-officer nearly 3 years in Breonna Taylor raid, rebuffs DOJ call for no prison time. So, of course, it's Ben Crump being one of the representatives. It says a federal judge on Monday sentenced a former Kentucky police officer to nearly 3 years in prison for using excessive force during the deadly 2020 Breonna Taylor raid, rebuffing the U.S. Department of Justice recommendation of no prison time for the defendant. Brett Hankison, who fired 10 shots during the raid but didn't hit anyone, was the only officer on the scene charged in the Black woman's death. He is the first person sentenced to prison in the case that rocked the city of Louisville and spawned weeks of street protests over police brutality that year. The U.S. District Judge, Rebecca Grady Jennings, in sentencing Hankison, said no prison time is not appropriate and would minimize the jury's verdict from November. Jennings said she was startled there weren't more people injured in the raid from Hankison's blind shots. She sentenced Hankison, 49 years old, to 33 months in prison for the conviction of a use of excessive force, with 3 years of supervised probation to follow the prison term. He will not report directly to prison. The U.S. Bureau of Prisons will determine where and when he starts his sentence. So first of all, I want to stop here really quick for a second. First of all, the person who actually shot the bullets that hit Breonna Taylor should be in cuffs, should be in trial, should be convicted for murder. You see, let me remind people about what happened. There was a no-knock raid that they were trying to go and arrest somebody for drug paraphernalia distribution. And they went to the wrong house. A no-knock raid, meaning they broke into somebody's house in the middle of the night. Now, let me paint a picture for you. You're at your house. You're sleeping soundly with your honey. And you have a legal firearm in your name. And then guess what happens? You hear a noise. You hear people inside the house. It's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And you're like, wait a minute. I think we got somebody trying to rob us. Or worse. So what do? Your heart's racing. Your heart's pumping. So you get up. Somebody's in your crib. So you shoot first, ask questions later. There was no announcement that police was in there. Or at least you couldn't at least hear it because you were dead asleep. And so you pick up your piece and you let off a few rounds because you don't know who the hell is inside your house. And then they fire back. And as they're firing back, they hit your significant other. And your significant other dies. And then you find out that it's the cops that are in your house that broke into your house. And now you get arrested for trying to protect your family. Because you thought that it was somebody trying to break in. And somebody did break in. But the people who broke in were cops. And now the person that fired the shot that killed your loved one is still walking about among us. But then the other one that fired 10 shots that could have hurt other people as well as yourself only got sentenced to less than 3 years. How would you feel? How would you feel? Breonna deserved better than this. Let's continue on. It says the judge who presided over 2 of Hankison's trials expressed disappointment with the sentencing recommendation by federal prosecutors last week, saying that the Justice Department was treating Hankison's actions as an inconsequential crime and said some of its arguments were incongruous and inappropriate. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who helped Taylor's family secure a $12 million wrongful death settlement against the city of Louisville, had called the department's recommendation an insult to the life of Breonna Taylor and a blatant betrayal of the jury's decision. Crump was at Monday's hearing and said he had hoped for a longer sentence, but was grateful that Hankison is at least going to prison and has to think for those 3 years about Breonna Taylor and that her life mattered. Afterward, before the crowd outside the courthouse, Crump sounded familiar chants. Say her name. The crowd yelled, Breonna Taylor. And he and other members of Taylor's family legal team issued a subsequent statement criticizing the Justice Department. Let's continue to hear. It says Hankison's 10 shots the night of the March 2020 botched drug raid flew through the walls of Taylor's apartment into a neighboring apartment, narrowly missing the neighboring family. The 26-year-old's death, along with the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, sparked a racial injustice and police brutality protest nationwide that year. But the Justice Department, under the new leadership since President Donald Trump took office in January, sought no prison time for Hankison in an abrupt about-face by federal prosecutors after the department spent years prosecuting the former detective. I'm going to say this to the Black community, those of you who voted for Donald Trump. That man does not give a shit about any of us. Why in the hell are you still on his team? And let me remind you, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a liberal. I say the same shit about Joe Biden. I would say the same thing about Kamala Harris, because they don't care about Black people either. Why are we still allowing these people to give us the okie doke when in the reality they're showing us who they really are? The Trump Justice Department didn't want Hankison to face prison time. No, neither of these parties give a damn about us. This is why I say leave both parties. Because they're not there for us and they will never be there for us. Let's continue. But the Justice Department, under new leadership since President Donald Trump took office, sought no prison time. It says they suggested time already served, which amounted to 1 day and 3 years of supervised probation. Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer, said she was disappointed that the new federal prosecutors assigned to the case were not pushing for a tougher sentence. On many occasions inside the courtroom Monday, lead federal prosecutor Rob Keegan agreed with Hankison's defense attorneys on factors that would decrease Hankison's punishment. There's no prosecution in there for us. That's what Breonna Taylor's mother said. Brett has his own defense team. I didn't know he got a second one. Taylor was shot in her hallway by 2 officers after her boyfriend fired from inside the apartment, striking an officer in the leg. Neither of the officers was charged in state or federal court after prosecutors deemed they were justified in returning fire to the apartment. Here's the thing. How are they justified when they did a no-knock raid and entered into somebody's home, startling them awake, and that person was just doing self-defense of their family? How in the hell are they justified? But that's how the state operates. Because you don't have rights. On paper, citizens of the United States have Second Amendment rights. On paper. But in reality, do we really have Second Amendment rights? Do Black Americans really have Second Amendment rights? That's the question. Because when we do use our Second Amendment rights, when we do exercise our Second Amendment rights, then we're in the wrong. Look, Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend, they were asleep. Y'all shouldn't have be doing no-knock raids on people. And this is why I talk about how the war on drugs actually shouldn't be existing anymore. Because it's the war on drugs that gave the catalyst for police officers to do a no-knock raid on somebody's house. That's what it is. They're not, and plus, even when it comes to drug paraphernalia, they're not going after the people on the top. They're only going after the low-level guys. Because they wouldn't dare go after the people on top. Because the people on the top, well, they keep the machine going too. So, of course, they went after somebody who they thought was distributing drugs, when in reality, that wasn't the case at all. Since Louisville police used a drug warrant to enter Taylor's apartment, but found no drugs or cash inside. A separate jury deadlocked on federal charges against Hankison in 2023, and he was acquitted on state charges of wanton endangerment in 2022. In their recent sentencing memo, federal prosecutors wrote that though Hankison's response in the fraught circumstances was unreasonable, given the benefit of hindsight, that unreasonable response did not kill or wound Breonna Taylor, her boyfriend, her neighbors, defendant, fellow officers, or anyone else. Jennings acknowledged Monday that officers were provoked by Taylor's boyfriend's gunshot, but said that does not allow officers to then do what they want and then be excused. They should have never did the no-knock raid in the first place. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, if the no-knock raid never happened, Breonna Taylor would still be alive. We wouldn't even know her name. We wouldn't even know her name. She would still be alive. God damn it. So this is what happened. One of the things, and please make sure to take the poll. But I want to get into this as well because people are rightfully pissed that he wasn't sentenced for longer, as well as the people who are who actually shot the bullets that murdered Breonna Taylor should also be in that courtroom too, but they're not. So let's get into this.
Breaking story, as we just told you going into that break, former LMPD Detective Brent Hankison getting 2 years and 9 months from federal judge Rebecca Grady Jennings. Our Isaiah Kim Martinez covered his trial in November and was in the courtroom all day long. Isaiah, tell us more about how all that came out, how people reacted, because the judge sort of surprising everybody with her overruling of the DOJ recommendation.
Well, Doug, it was stunning. 2 years, 9 months, like you said, 33 months in custody for Brett Hankison, and then 3 years supervised release immediately after. I just heard a very prominent activist here, Alyssa Newton, our senior photojournalist, can zoom into him. He just said, and excuse some of the profanity, people are very impassioned right now, but Bruce Sweeney in the purple jersey just said on the megaphone, he says 2 years, 9 months, that's crazy. And you get this feeling, at least for the activists and protesters, former protesters here right now, that they are not happy with that sentence. I actually was inside the courtroom. I saw Tamika Palmer, of course, Breonna Taylor's mother, essentially sort of put her face in her hands. She didn't look distraught, but she definitely looked disappointed as the judge not only said her sentence, but said the guidelines that led up to her decision. It was sort of dwindling that number as the minutes went by. Again, 2 years, 9 months. That'll be the sentence for Brett Hankison to serve in.
2 years, 9 months. 2 years and 9 months. It's not even a full 3 years. That's all he's getting. And then he gets supervised probation afterwards. Supervised by who? What, one of his buddies? That's a joke. It's a joke.
Federal prison, and then through 3 years supervised release shortly after. And you can hear the individual here, Antonio, with the megaphone, saying 33 months, basically saying it's not justice. Mentioned the fact that we're in Louisville and what they've been through over the last 5 years. I want to step back in here. You know, this is a moment, right? We saw the Department of Justice, in sort of a stunning move under the Trump administration, recommend 3 years supervised release. That's it last week. So many were wondering, is that all Brett Hankison is going to? That was the words for some of the family members that were questioning that. But the judge ended up going significantly higher than this new Department of Justice had recommended, which again, I was told by Brian Butler, who's a former federal prosecutor, that is very rare, but it happens. And she said the judge here, Rebecca Grady Jennings, says she took everything into consideration, including the severity of this verdict, the severity of this charge that Brett Hankison was found guilty of.
Isaiah.
They are still in the courtroom right now going through appeal proceedings right now, Doug.
Well, let's talk about what you were watching inside that courtroom today. First of all, the family was giving a victim impact statement, I know, to the judge today. What about Brett Hankison? Did he speak at all today?
Brett Hankison did, Doug. He apologized directly to the family, and he actually said, if I were to know everything that I do now, going back in time 5 years, that he wouldn't have fired those shots. He said that.
Oh, so now it's like, well, if I had known. How much training do police officers get officially? You get more training going to cosmetology school than you do a police officer in the United States. I talked to a former police trainer. She told me that they actually get more training in cosmetology school than they do in being a police officer. None of those people are professionally trained. None of them. None of them. Therefore, why in the hell do they have a badge and a gun? Why in the world? Why is it that they get so little training and then licensed to be able to take a life? But to help preserve life, you have to go through years and years and years of medical training in order to be being able to be licensed in order to preserve a life. But they don't need as much training to take a life. That's wild, isn't it?
He said the words were very clear to hear in the courtroom, and he told that directly to the family that he would not have fired his weapon had he known everything that he knew years ago. Of course, this was before the judge made her ruling on that sentence. Again, 33 months in federal custody, Doug.
Let's go over what was potential here. According to the memorandum they filed just last week, he could have been convicted anywhere between 135 months to 168 months in prison, up to life in prison. And then the Trump administration DOJ attorney said, we want no jail time for him, just to serve the 1 day he's already served, and then the 3 years of supervised release. That did not happen. So this judge was appointed by President Donald Trump during his first term. She went against the DOJ's recommendations.
Doug, she did, and she actually said right before her sentence that she's very troubled by some of the reasoning that this new look Department of Justice, these attorneys who, by the way, I have never seen before, they did not step in that courtroom for a single day of either of these trials, essentially strangers to anybody covering this case. She said she was troubled by some of the reasoning. She says in her words that they were diminishing the verdict of what she called a very serious charge that he was convicted of, Doug. So you could tell she was not having any of that recommendation. But again, as far as the raw sentence, significantly lower than many people might have expected with the family. But she did make it clear she was going based off a 33-month to 41-month guideline. That was what she was operating in. So if you consider that, it was closer to what she expected going into today, Doug.
So it just goes to show the Trump administration doesn't care. They want to let Killer Police off the hook. And I want to end with this as well, because I find this laughable at this juncture. Since federal prosecutors had argued that multiple factors, including that Hankison's 2 other trials ended with no convictions, should greatly reduce the potential punishment. They also argued that he would be susceptible to abuse in prison and suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. Will cry me a motherfucking river. Yeah, because you killed an innocent black woman. You murdered during unknown operation. Look, the dudes in the pen know all about that story. Let me tell you about dudes in the pen. Because I've had family that served in the penitentiary. I'm gonna tell you something. Especially men in the penitentiary. When they go in, they may not know much about legal lingo and jargon and processes and stuff like that. But guess what? Give them a little bit of time. Next thing you know, they are better than some of the lawyers, baby. They are educated on these laws. They're educated on these cases. And as soon as they found out, and guess what? They've had 5 years. 5 years to learn about the case about Breonna Taylor. They have 5 years to learn. Guess what? That's a lot of time. And so they know all the facts. And the streets talk. And when the streets talk, guess what? The dudes in the pen, they hear what the streets are saying. And they know all the facts on the ground that's going on. And so then, since they know all the facts, if one of the cops that participated in the murder of Breonna Taylor shows up in the pen and Gen Pop, oh snap. Oh snap. Especially if some of those dudes in the pen were arrested by him before. Oh snap. Oh. So of course he's scared. He's petrified. He's petrified. The worst thing for a cop is to be in prison with the people he brutalized. or she brutalized and put in prison. That's the worst thing. That's the worst fear for a cop. And guess what? That's what's going to happen. And of course, they're saying, well, he has PTSD. You shouldn't have fired those shots, bro. But you did. So this is why I say cry me a river. Because you did what you did. And you wouldn't be making this case if they had said, you know what, he's a cop, he was justified. You wouldn't be saying all this. You wouldn't be having all this PTSD. You would have went on your merry little way. But you're saying it because you want people to have mercy on you. Because you got caught and now you're getting at least some semblance of accountability. You're not getting the full weight of the accountability because our system is twisted and evil. But you're getting some. And so please take the poll. But as for me, in my opinion, they went too lenient. Because ultimately, Breonna Taylor deserved better. Breonna Taylor should be alive and never experienced that in the first place. We shouldn't even know her name. Her name should never be a hashtag unless we're congratulating her for something amazing that she did. That's the only reason why we should have a hashtag for her. Like, congratulations, Breonna Taylor, or way to go, Breonna Taylor. You saved a life because she was an EMT. But absolutely not. I do not think that it went far enough. Equally, I think that the officers that shot and killed her should be facing prison time. Now, I am personally not for the death penalty because there's too many people that are caught up in death row that are probably innocent. But the people who shot and killed Breonna Taylor, their sentence should be quite significant. And they should be in there with him. It shouldn't just be him. And this is what we go through in this Black community, day in and day out, over and over and over again. We're constantly being plagued with this BS. I'm going to share something right now, and I'm going to tell you right now. I don't even know if I can play this without. There was a young man that filmed himself being detained by police recently. It was shared on Hotspot. Shout out to Hotspot. But I'm going to pause right at a specific point. But I want you guys to know that this young man right here is experiencing what we, especially as Black Americans, have been going through since time immemorial on this land.
Exit the vehicle now. Exit the vehicle.
When he pulled me over, he walked up, opened my door because my window don't work, right? Yeah. And then I said, so what I did wrong? Yeah. He said, well, for one, your headlights are off under this weather. I'm like,
Okay.
There's multiple people headlights off,
Okay,
first of
that's
all.
still a
And then
legitimate reason
there's no rain.
It doesn't matter. You're still required to have headlights on.
Can you pull that law up?
Huh?
Can you pull that law
Yeah,
up?
when you step out of the car, I will.
Okay, so he asked to pull the law up, right? Show him the law. And now they're like, get out of the car. Meaning they don't have access to that law. There's no rain. There's no inclement weather that's happening at that very moment. So therefore, the necessity for him to have his headlights on really shouldn't happen. And yeah, he got pulled over for that. I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because he's a black man with locks. That's part of it. It's not just the locks, the fact that he's a black man. But he has locks that also kind of adds to it too. And as soon as you challenge, because you shouldn't be harassed by police, now it's when you try to get proof of the law that they say they're trying to enforce, and if they don't have it, they get frustrated. So guess what? They take their frustrations out on you, which is very unprofessional. And so they tell you to get out the car. When in reality, do they actually have probable cause to stop you? Do they have probable cause to get you to step out of the car? No, they don't. So then we have this situation.
Can you call your supervisor?
Oh, and guess what? When they say, can you call your supervisor? Oh, they get even more mad. Because by law, when you say, I need to speak to your supervisor, they're supposed to radio that supervisor and that supervisor is supposed to come. But guess what? They don't want to do that. Why? Because they feel like, well, who is this uppity N-word telling me to get my supervisor? Hell no. I'm going to take them in anyway. Even though their detainment is actually illegal.
Can you call your supervisor?
All right, go for it.
Wait. Right after he said, can you call your supervisor? They didn't even wait. And people go, well, he should have just complied. Here's the problem with that argument. Should we comply with anything that the police does that's unlawful? Should we have to? And if people go, well, you just want to get home safe, well, then that means that police officer, that's fascism. That's a totalitarianism. Because now you have to fear for your life for somebody that's supposed to protect your life. So now you have to do what they say at gunpoint, which is against your own rights. So do you live in a free and open society? If you have to do something unlawful that they command, and then just so you can get home alive and safe? If they didn't have a badge, wouldn't that be assault, battery, kidnapping? To break into the window, wouldn't that be breaking and entering? Wouldn't that be all that? If they didn't have that badge? So what gives them the right to do it? Especially if they don't have probable cause. Especially if he asked for a supervisor. He literally requested for a higher superior officer to come to assess the situation. Therefore, that means he is not a threat. And yet, right after he asks, they break the window.
vehicle now. Exit the vehicle. Show me your hands.
Here.
Boom! Boom! Hands right there. Free. Nothing in his hands. Is he a threat? Is he a threat? Was Breonna Taylor a threat? Was George Floyd a threat? Was Botham Jean a threat? Was Sandra Bland a threat? Was Sonia Massey a threat? Was Sensei Reed a threat? Was Eric Garner a threat? Was Laquan McDonald a threat? Was Tamir Rice a threat? Were they? Where's the threat? By the way, he said his window doesn't work.
I'm here. What is your reason, sir? What is your reason?
Step out now.
All right. No, don't. Get on the ground.
Now you wonder why we talk about defund the police on the way to abolition. Y'all wonder why. Y'all wonder why black people are on the forefront of pushing for police abolition so that we can actually have real public safety. Was that public safety that you just saw there? Was that public safety? Didn't look like it to me. If you think that's public safety, then there's something wrong with you. You need to look inward. If you're taking up for the officers that killed Breonna Taylor, you need to look inward. You need to find your humanity. And this is the problem. This is why we talk about the system needs to change. We need to have a system of real public safety. That's not public safety. That's totalitarianism. And to anybody that waves that flag of do not tread on me, that's treading on us. Why aren't you out in these streets protesting about what happened to that young man? That's treading on people. Shouldn't you be against it? Shouldn't you be against what happened to Breonna Taylor? Shouldn't you be demanding for more accountability to Brett Hankison and the other officers that murdered Breonna Taylor? But no. Some of y'all have so much belief in this system that you're willing to look past justice. And that's the part that's sick. Did you take the poll? Because I honestly think that this system has to end now. If it doesn't, well, society is cooked. And I don't know what's going to happen next. This is why we organize. This is why we build dual power. This is why we're trying to change the system and rebuild it anew. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. More head kisses, and have a beautiful day.